well-known defense attorney, with a flair for the dramatic, argued that the alligator was the true thief, or perhaps a victim of circumstance. "I object," Binghamton shouted in the crowded courtroom, his voice cracking. "You can't blame an alligator for your crimes. This is a mockery of the Uniform Code of Military Justice." "I'm not blaming him, sir," Parker retorted, adjusting his glasses. "I'm saying he's a witness. He has an unhappy childhood. He's hungry for affection, and he has a very discerning taste in wallets." Just as the judge was about to rule against the crew, McHale led Sidney on a very sturdy leash into the courtroom. The alligator, lured by the scent of a fresh peanut butter sandwich held by Gruber, waddled up to the bench and deposited the wallet intact with the marked bills at the judge's feet. The crew was exonerated, and Binghamton was left to explain to a very skeptical admiral why he was marking bills to trap his own men during a global conflict. That night, under the crystalline stars of New Caledonia, McHale and Evelyn walked along the silvered beach. The war felt like it was on another planet. "You really are a pirate, aren't you?" she asked, her voice filled with a mixture of amusement and deep affection. "Only for the right reasons, Evelyn," McHale said, stopping to look at her. His silhouette was strong against the moonlit water. "This war, it takes so much. It takes time. It takes friends. It takes the very soul if you let it. But it brought me to you, and I'm not letting that go. Not for all the admirals in Washington." He kissed her then, a long, deep embrace that tasted of salt, hope, and the promise of a future that didn't involve depth charges or sirens. Chapter 6. The Ghost of PT-13. War has a way of making men superstitious. On a particularly gloomy Friday, the 13th, the crew of the 73 began to hear whispers that their boat was jinxed. Binghamton, ever the opportunist, decided to lean into the rumors to scare the crew into requesting a transfer, thereby ridding himself of McHale once and for all. He planted evidence of a cursed past, a fabricated history of the boat as the PT-13, a vessel that had allegedly lost 3 crews to mysterious circumstances. "I can't stay on a Jonah ship, Skip," Virgil groaned, clutching a rabbit's foot. "The engines are moaning like ghosts." McHale knew it was a Binghamton special. He decided to fight fire with phantoms. When Binghamton sent a special courier to the boat at night to further the ruse, the crew transformed the 73 into a literal ghost ship. Using white sheets, eerie phosphorescent paint, and recorded sound effects of moaning spirits, they turned the tables on the captain. Binghamton, visiting the dock to gloat, found himself confronted by the spirits of the lost crews. He fled into the night, screaming about naval regulations and restless souls, much to the delight of the crew and a hidden, laughing Evelyn Wilson. "Fear is a powerful motivator," McHale noted, as he helped Evelyn down from a hiding spot on the deck. "But a good prank is even better for the soul." Chapter 7. The Commander's Masquerade. The arrival of a USO show unit brought a different kind of tension. Among the dancers was Ginger, the long-distance girlfriend of the crew's resident scrounger, Lester Gruber. The problem? Gruber had written to her for months claiming he was a lieutenant commander and the hero of the Pacific. "She's here, Skip. She's actually here." Gruber panicked, looking at his grease-stained sailor's uniform. "If she sees me like this, I'm dead. She thinks I'm the one giving the orders." McHale, never one to let a friend down in the name of love, organized the ultimate masquerade. He traded uniforms with Gruber, and for one afternoon, the crew of the 73 became Gruber's guerrillas, with McHale acting as the lowly ensign and Gruber barking orders as the commander. The ruse worked perfectly until they were forced to take a visiting British Commodore on a combat mission. Gruber, sweating under the commander's hat, had to pretend to lead a torpedo run while McHale whispered instructions from the shadows. In a stroke of luck that could only happen to the 73, they actually stumbled upon a Japanese midget sub. Under McHale's secret guidance, Gruber ordered a hit that sent the enemy to the bottom. The Commodore was impressed, Ginger was swooning, and Binghamton was having an apoplectic fit on the dock as he tried to figure out why his lieutenant commander looked exactly like the man he'd been trying to court-martial for months. "Love makes us do crazy things." McHale whispered to Evelyn later that night as they watched Ginger and Gruber share a tearful goodbye. "It does," she agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. Chapter 8. The Stolen Payroll and the Final Salvo. The final, most dangerous test came with the $62,000 base payroll. Binghamton, in a twisted bit of trust, assigned the 73 crew to transport the massive sum of money through the dangerous, fog-slicked streets of New Caledonia. He secretly hoped they would be robbed, or even better, succumb to the temptation of the money themselves. Parker, carrying the heavy canvas bag, was indeed ambushed, not by the Japanese, but by a mysterious woman in a blue dress, a figure from the criminal underworld who had been tracking the Navy's movements. She had a birthmark, Parker stammered, recovering from a blow to the head in a dark alley. A heart-shaped birthmark on her right ankle. I saw it as she ran away with my dignity. And the money. The search for the girl with the heart ankle became a frantic race against the clock. McHale and his men scoured the casinos, the back alley bistros, and the dockside warehouses, all while dodging Binghamton's helpful patrols. They finally tracked the thieves to a derelict warehouse near the docks. A massive firefight ensued, a chaotic ballet of bullets and shouted orders. Parker, in his infinite, clumsy wisdom, managed to fire a non-functional ceremonial cannon by lighting a makeshift fuse. The blast didn't hit the thieves, but the shockwave knocked a hidden stash of stolen goods, including the payroll bag, out of a loft and onto the floor. "Manna from heaven," McHale shouted as the $100 bills fluttered down like green snow in the warehouse light. They returned the money to a stunned and disappointed Binghamton just as a lone Japanese Zero made a desperate final run at the base. The crew of the 73, working as a seamless unit, manned the deck guns and drove the attacker away in a hail of lead. In the aftermath, as the smoke cleared and the sun began to rise over the Pacific, Admiral Rafferty arrived for his final, decisive inspection. He saw the payroll recovered, the enemy repelled, and a crew that, while unconventional and often smelling of illegal moonshine, was the most effective and courageous unit in his entire fleet. "Binghamton," the Admiral said, looking at the captain, who was currently covered in soot and looking quite defeated. "You have a very strange, very chaotic way of running a base. But your men, they have heart. And in this war, heart is what ultimately wins." As the Admiral's plane took off into the morning light, McHale stood on the dock with his crew. Evelyn was there, her hand firmly in his. Parker stood with Princess Siri, who had made a diplomatic return to the island, proving that some loves were stronger than international borders. "We did it, Skip," Parker said, looking at the hero's medal pinned to his chest. "We actually survived." McHale looked at the 73 boat. "The war isn't over, but we've already won the biggest battle." The sun over Taratupa began its climb, casting long, golden shadows over the lagoon. The war was far from over, but for this moment, there was peace, there was laughter, and there was a love that was stronger than the tide, a light that no shadow could ever truly extinguish. Pacific Embers, the command of love. Prologue, the humidity of duty. The South Pacific was not merely a place, it was an entity. It breathed through the thick, salt-laden air of Taratupa, a humid shroud that clung to the skin like a desperate lover. The island was a jagged emerald set in a turquoise sea, beautiful from a distance but suffocating up close. Captain Wallace B. Binghamton sat in his office, the overhead fan groaning in a rhythmic, agonizing cycle, a mechanical heartbeat that seemed to count down the seconds until his inevitable nervous breakdown. Each rotation was a reminder of the heat, the isolation, and the sheer absurdity of his command. He was a man of order, or at least, a man who desperately wished to be. His uniform was starched to the point of structural integrity, a sharp contrast to the sagging morale of the base. But Taratupa was a land of chaos, a forgotten corner of the war governed more by the whims of the sea and the clever, often illicit machinations of one Commander Quentin McHale than by the rigid dictates of the Naval Handbook. Binghamton stared at the request on his desk. It was typed on official letterhead, yet its content was far from military. Garter belts. The nurses, those angels of mercy, who were currently the only thing keeping the men from total despair, were demanding garter belts. "Wow," he whispered to the empty room, his voice cracking with the strain of 1,000 small indignities. Wow, wow.